After leaving Toulouse on that late afternoon train, I settled into my seat with a strange mixture of peace and anticipation. The French countryside rolled past my window in waves of golden fields and distant villages. I was heading to Marseille, France's oldest city, and I had no plans beyond finding a cheap hostel and losing myself in the Mediterranean atmosphere. That's when I noticed it. Wedged between my seat and the window was a worn leather notebook, the kind artists use for sketching. Someone had left it behind. I picked it up, feeling the soft, aged leather under my fingers. The cover was unmarked except for initials embossed in faded gold. AL. I opened the first page. What I saw took my breath away. The sketch was of a harbor, drawn with such precise detail and emotional depth that I could almost smell the salt air. It was dated August 1942. The next page showed a narrow street with buildings leaning close together. September 1942. Page after page of sketches, all of Marseille, all from the early 1940s. These weren't just drawings. They were love letters written in charcoal and ink. The train pulled into Marseille's St. Charles station just as the sun was setting. I grabbed my backpack and the mysterious notebook and stepped onto the platform. The station itself is magnificent, a grand Beaux-Arts building that sits high above the city. I was halfway down the massive staircase when I heard a voice that made me stop in my tracks. "Peter Matthews, you beautiful bastard." I turned around and there he was. Kevin Morrison, my best friend from my traveling days. 6 feet of pure American enthusiasm, sandy hair falling into his eyes, wearing a backpack that looked like it had been through a war, with a grin that could light up a stadium. Kevin couldn't believe it. "What the hell are you doing in Marseille?" He bounded down the stairs and pulled me into a bear hug. "Looking for you, man. I've been tracking your social media across Europe. Saw your post from Toulouse yesterday and figured you'd head south." Kevin and I had met 7 years ago in Thailand. We'd stayed in touch, but I hadn't seen him in person since I'd settled in Chicago 3 years ago. "So what's the plan?" he asked. "No plan," I admitted. "Just came here to eat bouillabaisse and pretend to be cultured." "Perfect. I know a hostel in Le Panier. Come on, let's go make some bad decisions." We found the hostel tucked into a narrow street in Le Panier, Marseille's oldest neighborhood. The buildings here lean together like old friends, their facades painted in shades of yellow, orange, and faded pink. The hostel owner, Margot, assigned us to a 4-bed dorm room that we had entirely to ourselves. That evening, Kevin and I wandered down to the viewport, the old harbor that has been the heart of Marseille for over 2,000 years. We found a small restaurant and ordered bouillabaisse and local rose wine. "So what's really going on, Peter?" Kevin asked. "Last I heard, you were killing it in Chicago. Then suddenly you're backpacking through Europe. What happened?" I took a sip of wine. "I walked away from it all. The job, the apartment, the life I'd built. I was miserable, Kevin. I felt like I was disappearing." Kevin nodded. "And now I'm trying to figure out who I actually am." He raised his glass. "To finding yourself, then." After dinner, I remembered the notebook. I pulled it from my backpack. "I found this on the train. Look at these." Kevin took the notebook carefully, his eyes lighting up with excitement. He flipped through the pages slowly, studying each sketch. "These are incredible," he breathed. "Look at the detail. Whoever drew these loved this city." He was right. There was an intimacy to the sketches, a tenderness in how each shadow was rendered. "Look at the dates," I pointed out. 1942, 1943. That's during the German occupation. About halfway through the notebook, certain locations started appearing repeatedly. A specific street corner, a bakery with a distinctive awning, and most frequently, a house with a bright blue door and a window on the second floor marked with an X. On the backs of some sketches, we found words written in French. "Notre secret," our secret. "Toujours," always. "Attends-moi," wait for me. "This is a love story," I said quietly. Kevin looked at me with that familiar spark of adventure in his eyes. "We have to find out what happened." Back at the hostel that night, we sat on our bunks planning our strategy like teenagers plotting an adventure. We've got maybe a dozen distinct locations, Kevin said. The bakery appears in at least 5 sketches. If it still exists, someone might recognize it. And the house with the blue door, I added. That appears more than anything else. We decided to walk through Lou Panier the next day with the notebook, looking for buildings that matched the sketches. The next morning, armed with strong coffee and the notebook, Kevin and I set out. Le Panier in the morning is magical. The narrow streets were quiet except for shopkeepers opening their shutters and old women calling to each other from balconies. We started at the viewport and worked our way up into Le Panier, comparing the sketches to the actual streets. Then, on a small side street called Rue du Petit Putes, Kevin grabbed my arm. Peter, look, there it was, the bakery from the sketches. The striped awning was gone, but the distinctive step doorway and window placement were exactly right. That's it, I breathed. The bakery was called Boulangerie Colette. We pushed open the door. Behind the counter, an elderly woman with silver hair was arranging fresh croissants. We bought pastries, then I pulled out the notebook. Madam, we have a strange question. Has this bakery been in your family long? Yes, since 1923, she said. Why? I opened the notebook to a sketch of the bakery. Because someone drew this during World War II. Her hand flew to her mouth, tears filling her eyes. May I? She took the notebook with trembling hands and flipped through the pages, tears streaming down her face. I never thought I would see these again, she whispered. My mother told me about them. A young man used to sit across the street and draw during the war. He was Jewish, hiding in Marseille, trying to get papers to escape. She would bring him bread when she could. Do you know his name? Kevin asked. Aaron Levy. He was maybe 21. An artist. He fell in love with a French Catholic girl, which was extremely dangerous. My mother said they would meet in secret. He drew pictures of Marseille for her. What happened to him? I asked. My mother didn't know. One day he stopped coming. She never saw him again. She pulled out a piece of paper and wrote an address. The girl, the one he loved, she lived here, number 12, Rue de Repentis. My mother said she never married, never left Marseille. She waited for him. She handed me the address. I don't know if she's still alive, but if she is, I think she would want to see these. They were for her. Rue de Repentis was a short walk away. Number 12 was a narrow building painted pale yellow, with a bright blue door, exactly like in the sketches. I rang the doorbell. The door opened. The woman who stood before us was tiny and elegant, probably in her mid-90s, but with a straight back and clear eyes. She wore a simple navy dress and pearls. Oui, she said cautiously. I pulled out the notebook and opened it to a sketch of her house, with that distinctive X in the window. She gasped and gripped the doorframe. Where did you get this? I found it on a train. These drawings are all of Marseille, from 1942 and 1943. Many of them are of this house. She stared at the sketch, then looked up with tears in her eyes. Please, come inside. Her apartment was on the 2nd floor, beautifully maintained and filled with books and plants. She gestured for us to sit by the window, the same window from the sketches. My name is Claire Dubois, she said, accepting the notebook with reverent hands. And these were made by the only man I ever loved. Kevin and I sat in silence as Claire turned the pages, touching each sketch like it was sacred. His name was Aaron Levy, she finally said. We met in March of 1942. I was 17, working in my father's shop. He came in to buy paper. We started talking, and I knew immediately there was something different about him. She paused, lost in memory. We fell in love. Quickly, desperately, but it was dangerous. I was Catholic, he was Jewish. The Germans were everywhere. Jews were being arrested, deported. So you met in secret, I said softly. Yes, here in this apartment. Aaron would come at night, and we would sit by this window and dream about the future. He would draw pictures of Marseille. Each drawing was a promise that we would survive, that our love would outlast the war. She turned to a sketch of the harbor. He was trying to get papers to escape to America. For months, he worked on it. And did he get them? Kevin asked. Claire nodded. In September 1943, he secured passage on a ship leaving from near Toulouse. But my papers weren't ready. I couldn't go with him, so we made a plan. He would go to America and send for me. It might take months, maybe a year, but he would come back. She held the notebook close. The night before he left, Aaron gave me this. Every drawing he'd made. He said, "Keep these safe, Claire. They're my promise to you. I'm coming back. Wait for me." The pain in her voice was raw. I waited, she whispered. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. No letter came. No word. Nothing. I told myself maybe he couldn't write, that the war made it impossible. When the war ended, I waited at this window every day. But he never came. What do you think happened? I asked gently. I don't know. Maybe the ship was intercepted. Maybe he was caught. Maybe he died. Or maybe, her voice cracked, maybe he made it to America and forgot about me. Maybe our love was just a wartime romance to him. She looked at us with determination through her tears. For 80 years, I've lived with that uncertainty, not knowing if Aaron died loving me or lived without thinking of me. Kevin and I exchanged a glance. Claire, I said carefully, would you want to know the truth? If we could find out what happened to Aaron, the real truth, would you want to know? Even if it's painful. She didn't hesitate. Yes, I've spent 80 years not knowing. Even if the truth breaks my heart, I need to know. Then give us a few days, Kevin said. Give us everything you know about him. We'll find out what happened to Aaron Levy. That's a promise. For the next 3 days, Kevin and I barely slept. We transformed our hostel room into a research center, digging through every database and archive we could access. Kevin had connections from his years of traveling. Researchers, historians, people who knew how to find information. He called in favors, sent emails, spent hours on calls with Holocaust researchers. I contributed what I could from my years as an information broker, knowing how to find people, how to connect information, how to follow digital breadcrumbs. We searched passenger manifests for ships leaving southern France in September 1943. We combed through immigration records. We looked through Holocaust databases. On the second day, Kevin found a lead. A ship called the Esperance that departed near Toulon on September 22, 1943, carrying 47 refugees. Listen to this, Kevin said. The Esperance was intercepted by a German patrol boat off Spain on September 24th. All passengers were arrested. My heart sank. And then, they were sent to Drancy, the internment camp outside Paris. Drancy, the primary assembly camp for Jews being deported from France to the death camps. Kevin kept searching, his face growing grimmer. I'm cross-referencing the passenger list with deportation lists from Drancy. He stopped, his face going pale. What is it? I asked. Kevin turned his screen toward me. There was a scanned document with a list of names. Halfway down, Levy Aaron David. Born March 15, 1922. Arrived Drancy November 3, 1943. Deported Auschwitz November 11, 1943. Below that, deceased, Auschwitz II-Birkenau. January 1944. We sat in silence for a long time. He never made it, Kevin finally said. He died in Auschwitz. He was 21 years old. How do we tell her this? I asked. I don't know, but we have to. We promised. Maybe we shouldn't, Kevin said. She's lived 80 years with hope. If we tell her he died in Auschwitz, we take away that hope. I thought about what Claire had said. She asked for the truth. She said even painful truth was better than uncertainty. We have to trust that she knows what she needs. Kevin nodded. You're right. The next morning, we returned to Rue de Repentis. Claire opened the door before we knocked. You found something, she said immediately. We sat by the window. I took a breath. Claire, we found records of Aaron. We know what happened. She sat perfectly still. Tell me. We told her about the Esperance being intercepted, about Drancy, about the deportation to Auschwitz, about Aaron dying there in January 1944. Claire's face remained calm, but tears streamed down her cheeks. When we finished, she sat in silence, looking out the window. "He never forgot me," she finally whispered. "He never abandoned me. He tried to save me, and he died trying." "Yes," Kevin said softly. "We found testimonies from other survivors. They talked about a young artist who drew pictures to lift spirits, even in the camp. That was Aaron." Despite the tears, there was something like peace in Claire's eyes. "For 80 years, I've carried two weights," she said. "The weight of loving someone gone, and the weight of not knowing if that love was returned. Now one of those weights is gone. My heart breaks knowing how he suffered, but it soars knowing he never betrayed me, never forgot me." She picked up the notebook. These drawings were his promise, and he kept that promise with his life. "What will you do with them?" I asked. Claire held the notebook out to me. "I want you to donate them to the Museum of the History of Marseille. These aren't just our love story, they're history. They're a testament to love and art surviving even in the darkest times." "Are you sure?" Kevin asked. "They were his gift to the world," Claire said gently. "I've kept them safe for 80 years. Now it's time to share them. Let people see what Aaron saw. Let them know that even in occupied Marseille, even as a hunted Jewish man, he chose to create beauty. That's his real legacy." She smiled despite the tears. "And maybe this is how Aaron finally makes it to the future we dreamed about. Through his art, through our story being remembered. Maybe that's as close to a happy ending as we were going to get." We sat with Claire for another hour, looking through the drawings together. She told us stories about each location, about her memories with Aaron. When we finally left, she hugged us both. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving me the gift of knowing. You've given an old woman peace." Kevin and I walked back through Lupanier in silence. "That was the hardest thing I've ever done," Kevin said. "But it was also the right thing," I replied. She needed to know. We spent the rest of that day arranging the donation. The museum curator was incredibly moved. "These kinds of documents are invaluable," she told us. "Personal artifacts that show the human experience. These are rare and precious." On our last evening in Marseille, Kevin and I returned to the viewport, to the same restaurant from our first night. "You know what strikes me?" Kevin said. "Aaron and Claire had maybe 6 months together, and yet that defined everything that came after. She spent 80 years remembering him. Was that beautiful or tragic?" "Both," I said. "It's both. That's what makes it human." "Would you do that?" Kevin pressed. "Spend your whole life loving someone you'd only known for 6 months?" I thought about it. A few months ago in Chicago, I would have said no. But now, after everything I'd experienced, I wasn't so sure. "I think some connections go deeper than logic or time," I said slowly. "Some people touch you in a way that changes who you are. Maybe Aaron was that for Claire. Maybe she wasn't pining for him so much as honoring what he'd awakened in her. The capacity to love that deeply, to remain true even when the world said to move on." Kevin nodded. "When did you get so philosophical?" "I found a notebook on a train," I said with a smile. He laughed. "So what's next?" "Lion. There's an old bookstore there I want to see. And after that? I don't know. That's the point, isn't it? No plan, just following whatever calls to me." Kevin raised his glass. "To not having the answers, and to old notebooks that remind us what really matters." We clinked glasses as the sun dipped below the horizon. "I'm heading east," Kevin said. "Probably Croatia, maybe Greece, but our paths will cross again. They always do." "They always do," I agreed. That night, lying in my bunk, I thought about Aaron and Claire, about how he'd tried to capture Marseille in his drawings, to preserve something beautiful in the middle of horror, about how Claire had kept those drawings safe for 80 years. I pulled out my own notebook and wrote, "In Marseille, I learned that love doesn't end when people do, that promises kept can outlast lifetimes, that sometimes the greatest courage is choosing to hope, choosing to remain true to something beautiful even when everything says to give up." Aaron kept drawing. Claire kept waiting. And 80 years later, their story still has power. That's not tragic. That's transcendent. The next morning, Kevin and I said goodbye at the train station. "Take care of yourself, Peter," he said, pulling me into a hug. "Life's too short to play it safe." Aaron and Claire taught us that. "When did you become the wise one?" "I've always been wise. You just never listened." He grinned. "But seriously, I'm glad we found each other again. I feel like we did something that mattered." "I know," I said. "Thank you for being here. That's what brothers do." He grabbed his backpack. "Now get out of here before we start crying." I watched him walk away, thinking that some friendships transcend time and distance, remaining constant when everything else changes. My train to Lyon departed at noon. As Marseille rolled past my window, I thought about everything that had happened. I'd come with no expectations and instead found a mystery that taught me about love and loss and staying true to what matters. I'd reunited with my best friend. I'd given a 94-year-old woman closure. I'd helped preserve a piece of history. Not bad for a week in Marseille. As the train picked up speed, I pulled out my notebook and added one more entry. Aaron Levy taught me that art is defiance against darkness. That creating beauty, documenting what you love, these are revolutionary acts when the world is falling apart. Claire Dubois taught me that love is a choice you make every day. That's staying true to someone, honoring their memory. That's love in its purest form. Together, they taught me that 6 months of authentic connection is worth more than a lifetime of playing it safe. That happy endings aren't always about people ending up together. Sometimes they're about remaining faithful to what they shared. I came to Marseille looking for nothing particular. I left with everything that matters: perspective, purpose, and knowledge that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. The journey continues. The questions remain. But I'm starting to think that's the whole point. The French countryside rolled past in waves of green and gold. Somewhere ahead was Lyon. Behind me was Marseille and the story of two people who loved so completely that their story still echoed 80 years later. And in between, on a train heading north, was me, Peter Matthews from Chicago, former information broker, current backpacker, perpetual seeker of something I was starting to understand. I'd spent years accumulating money and power in Chicago and felt empty. I'd spent weeks in Europe with nothing but a backpack and an open heart and felt alive. The math was clear. Kevin was right. Life was too short to play it safe. Aaron and Claire had 6 months and made it eternal. I had the rest of my life ahead. What was I going to do with it? As the train carried me toward Lyon, I smiled. For the first time since leaving Chicago, I felt like I was starting to understand the answer. It wasn't about destinations or plans or having everything figured out. It wasn't about wealth or status or security. It was about connection, about paying attention, about being present for moments that matter, about being willing to dive into mysteries, about honoring what's beautiful and true. Aaron drew pictures because he loved the city and the woman who lived there. Claire kept those pictures because she loved the man who drew them. And 80 years later, a guy from Chicago found them and made sure the story didn't end with both of them forgotten. That was the point of everything: to connect, to care, to keep important stories alive, to honor love and beauty and truth, to live in a way that might make someone someday think, yes, that person understood what mattered. The train rolled on toward Lyon. I closed my notebook and looked out at the passing landscape. I didn't know what I would find in Lyon. I didn't know where I'd go after. I didn't know if I'd see Kevin again next week or next year. I didn't know if Mariana was still in Portugal or had moved to some other city. I didn't know if I'd ever return to Chicago or spend the rest of my life wandering. But I knew this. I was exactly where I needed to be, doing exactly what I needed to do. And for now, that was enough. The mystery of the secret sketches was solved. The story of Aaron and Claire was complete. And somewhere in the Museum of the History of Marseille, a leather notebook would be preserved, ensuring their love story would be remembered for generations to come. As for me, my story was just beginning. The train carried me north, toward Lyon and the unknown. Behind me, Marseille gleamed in the afternoon sun, ancient and eternal, carrying its secrets forward through time. And somewhere in that city, Claire Dubois sat by her window, finally at peace, finally knowing, finally able to honor Aaron's memory without the weight of uncertainty. Love endures, stories matter, and sometimes a forgotten notebook on a train can change everything. That's what I learned in Marseille. That's what Aaron and Claire taught me. And that's what I'll carry with me, wherever this journey takes me next.